So Ro Connor and Thomas Massey have come together to try and get the Epstein Files released, and they've brought together some of the
Yeah, I
quote-unquote victims.
I haven't dug into this story yet. What's the synopsis?
Yeah, so Ro Connor here, who's a Democrat, then Thomas Massey, who's obviously a Kentucky Republican. They've come together and they're trying to get a bill passed, I think, to get the Epstein Files released, and they're bringing together a bunch of the like Epstein victims, quote unquote. We don't really necessarily know if they're victims or not, and there is a financial incentive there, I will say, for them. But they're trying to bring together some of these victims and have the Epstein Files released, or at least get more clarity with the Epstein Files story.
Okay, let's take a look.
Kentucky, and thank you both for being here. Congressman Massey.
Sorry, I've got it on 2x speed.
Let me start with you, because obviously you've been the focus of the White House's hire, as you are well aware. But when you hear those women today on Capitol Hill, and then you hear what the president has to say, who do you think has more sway with your Republican colleagues? Those women or the president?
Well, with my Republican constituents, those women have the most credibility, and I think it's disrespectful to call it a hoax. This is not a hoax, not at all.
So, just for a bit of context, all of these victims, the reason why I say quote-unquote victims and that there is a financial incentive is because in the original testimonies, a lot of these victims didn't mention Ghislaine Maxwell at all. But now it seems as though there's some sort of incentive to mention Ghislaine Maxwell because she's potentially going to get pardoned by Trump. And this is just me saying what's going on, not giving an opinion. But she's potentially going to get pardoned by Trump at some point if she gives information. So they're saying that these victims have a financial incentive of some sort to now be mentioning Ghislaine Maxwell as some sort of a head honcho, and that this whole thing is actually an attack on Donald Trump. All of these victims now coming forward and CNN really pushing this story is just an attack on Donald Trump to try and discredit him.
Okay.
And it's not going to go away. If the president wants to highlight the things that he's trying to do in the White House, then he should just call for the vote and release all of these files, and then he can move on. But they want to drag this out.
Congressman Khanna, just on those women for a moment. I mean, that was such a striking show of force from all of them today. What was it like for you to hear from them?
You know, I was just moved on a human level. It really, for me, was totally not about politics. I was standing a few feet away from them while they were speaking out. Almost half of them were in tears. They were talking about being raped at the age of 13 or 14. They were talking about being forced to get other high school and junior high school friends of theirs, knowing that they were going to face sexual assault. It was heartbreaking. And frankly, they are bringing this country together. They are bringing people, whether they're progressive, independents.
Okay, so a couple things to look at here. The first is when Trump refers to this as a hoax, he's not referring to the fact that there was underage girls who were being raped on Epstein Island. That's not a thing which is even controversial or is disputed, to my knowledge, by anybody of any note in any political cast anywhere. I don't include that includes Trump. So them kind of disingenuously spinning this as though Trump is saying no, this never happened to the victims and things like this is pretty. It's pretty dirty. It's pretty underhanded. It's pretty sneaky. Makes me think that there is. While he says this isn't about politics, of course it's about politics. So right now there's a kind of pivotal thing which is going on. The public is very pissed off and incensed. They want the Epstein files and they want to know exactly who went to this island so that they can get justice. They want justice and they want these sorts of operations, blackmail operations, to cease and desist. They find them totally immoral. The idea that children can be victims of things like this for the purposes of political security is something the American people find abhorrent. But to the meat, the political end, Democrats don't give a shit about these girls. They don't give a f. They never cared. The Democrat administrations, which were in play when Epstein was active, didn't give a flying f. Biden didn't care. None of them care. The only reason they care right now is because they can see it as a linchpin to attack Trump's credibility to his constituency. Now, Massey's making a huge mistake here. The mistake isn't that he wants to make demands that the Epstein files be released. I think that that's totally reasonable, and he's probably telling the truth that his constituency does want them. The mistake is that you never work with a Democrat ever. You don't stand side by side with them while they say this isn't about politics when it's clearly about politics, and embolden them in destroying the head of your party, who was elected, in this case, Donald Trump. So I think that this will backfire in Massey's face. It's not going to look good for him. He's going to be known by his colleagues as a snake, and I kind of don't blame them. This was not the right way, I think, to go about this, standing there with a Democrat. This is the stupidest shit I ever saw in my life. So do I think that the Epstein Files should be released? Absolutely. Are they going to be? No, they're not going to be released. And is Congress really going to make these demands that they be released? No, they're not, no matter what. So this is all a political sham designed to bring a lot of attention to these politicians. But ultimately, I don't think that this was a good move by Massey.
Yeah, no, it is. It is an interesting one because I was looking at this yesterday because what they did was they got a bunch of these victims in the room and they did a big CNN interview with them. I don't know if you saw this. It's got a lot of views on YouTube. And I think it wasn't Caitlin Collins. I think it was another one of these CNN people where we're interviewing them, tell us your story, XYZ. And then they were asking, was Donald Trump ever involved in any of these things? And all of these victims all said, no, he was never involved. So that kind of flew in their face. But I was trying to look at it objectively. I was thinking, okay, CNN are trying to do one of two things here. Either they realize that they're plummeting and nobody respects them anymore, and they're not like sort of avant-garde journalists anymore at all. They look like talking heads. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to say this Epstein story, really popular. Apparently the mainstream media won't touch it, and apparently this is so taboo, we're going to go and report on this and show how sort of based we are. Or they're just trying to smear Donald Trump. And that it turns out that the latter was true. So I think that I would kind of agree with you. I like Thomas Maskey in a lot of ways. However, this isn't a good look because it's clearly a political hit job to try and discredit Trump.
Well, the thing here is that this particular issue on Epstein is extremely complex. This is not out of all the kind of political things which are going on, this one has the most nuance to it. The first is the public finally has to recognize and acknowledge that the United States government, MI6, Mossad, and many others run massive blackmail operations from key components of either what would be considered the deep state of non-elected officials, heads of NGOs, or even heads of states themselves, in order to get them to engage in blackmail behavior. And this blackmail behavior seems to be that they will set them up with women who are underage. They'll have sex with them, and then they'll use that to leverage them on something in the future. Now, for the purpose of national security, the nuance for the conversation has to be, and while nobody likes to have it, unfortunately, you're going to have to. Is it the case that blackmail operations like this are necessary to the security of the United States? I can legitimately see an argument that they are. I can legitimately see that as a viable argument that they are. The problem is that they're so morally abhorrent that the demand from the public is that they're going to be shut down regardless of national security. And I see that side too, and that's the side that I'm on. I would prefer that all of these blackmail operations be shut down. But is the United States government going to compromise its current agents, which may have come from Epstein, or release information that would compromise their blackmail list? No chance that's going to happen. Massey must know this, right? He's not a stupid man, which makes me think that him moving towards the Democrat Party and trying to assist them with this, is more of a kind of photo op and attention-seeking behavior than it actually is getting any justice for any of these victims.
Yeah, that's the one thing I do think I think it was Andrew Tate who made this point, where he said that powers and this like sort of the powers that be, they operate in a certain way where they want to maintain their power, and they want to scratch the back of people who are going to scratch their back. So are they going to try and appease a bunch of people on Twitter and YouTube who want to see the files and who want to be a part of this story? Or are they going to appease the extremely powerful people who are actually implicated in the releasing of these files? I'd say that they're probably going to try and appease the latter, and that's just the way things are. And also, in terms of keeping face, if these files were to get released and there were implications that would make the US government look corrupt and make the US government look like a lot of them are compromised. On the world stage, that would be a really bad look as well for the Americans. So they want to let the mask slip like that. If I was the government, if I was in charge, I don't know if I'd be releasing them either.
Well, and there's another angle to this as well, which is right now this is all the rage while Trump is president, and Democrats are more than happy to keep it on the front page because they think it discredits him with his base. And many Republicans now have to answer to their base and their constituency, and so they feel the need to call Trump out to task on this. But you have to be careful with this type of political leverage, because while this will hurt Trump's kind of political messaging in the short term, and it will devalue him with his base, as soon as Trump is out of office, this whole story goes away anyway. The media is going to stop covering it, and Democrats are going to stop covering it. They're instead going to move on to emboldening their politicians and their potential future presidential candidates. So it's going to get buried either way. You're going to try to destroy Trump, as we move towards that. That's the kind of $100 million question here, right?
Yeah, and unfortunately, just the nature of it is that these issues, they do become political. You'd like to sort of look at this with a clean, pure heart and say, we have to look out for the victims. It's like a sex trafficking scandal, and that's such an abhorrent thing. It's such an evil, and all of that is true. But unfortunately, just like this, and just like all of the other different sort of games that happen in terms of war and everything, they are political games, and they are used as political leverage by the two different sides. So you do have to look at it through that lens, as well as the humane side.
It's time to be adults here and say what is true. Here's what's true. What's true is that it doesn't matter if it's Canada, the United States, Mexico, South American nations, doesn't matter if it's Eastern Bloc nations, doesn't matter if it's what is considered Western European nations or Australia. Doesn't really matter. The taboo which is involved in this is way too enticing for intelligence agencies not to utilize the idea of sex for control and political leverage. This is done on very small scales. I've seen this type of blackmail produced against streamers. I've seen this kind of blackmail produced against people who have very, very small influential spaces and still are blackmailed with this type of thing. To say that the intelligence agencies globally are going to get rid of this very useful tool in their box of blackmail is just totally and completely naive. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And that's the facts. Those are the facts of the matter. And we also need to intelligently understand that this has been going on for hundreds of years, not for 50, not for 60, not for 70, for hundreds of years. Probably the earliest intelligence accounts, you would probably find that there would be blackmail over sex. So that's not going to go away anytime soon. And until people are willing to actually confront that issue up front, which is a very difficult one to even wrap your head around, this isn't going to go anywhere. And even if they did and it all got brought out in public, it still wouldn't go anywhere because it's just too useful for intelligence agencies to do this.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good point, man. And I just think that a lot of people, because they're so obsessed with this story, and fair enough, look, it is a heinous thing, a big sex trafficking ring. It's a terrible thing. All these really powerful people involved. But like you said, that's not a new thing. That's not something that just started happening 5 minutes ago. It's like, this is something that happens a lot. And you don't necessarily want to burn your house down whilst we just know that there's going to be.
This is the problem with having a truthful take, is that you Dark Rider 22 are so stupid. You don't understand that nobody made a prescription that this should be done, but a description that it is being done and will continue to be done regardless of what you think. Do you understand that? Now, maybe it's really hard for you to wrap your head around that, but that is the case. That is the case. And nobody's prescriptively saying it should be, but it is. And it's not going away anytime soon. And politics is a rough road. And we have to now answer some really tough questions about how we move forward with this. And do we destroy Trump in the interim, knowing that this will get buried the second we have a Democrat president? That's a question we got to ask ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Andrew, you described a thing, so clearly.
So clearly I'm for the thing.
Yeah, clearly.
Like,
why would you
so
describe
annoying.
a thing that you weren't fully and completely in support of?
I know. It's ridiculous.
And on that, I'm going to share this one. I'm sorry if this ruins everything, Mr. E. Let me get this full screen. Oh, have a look at that, boys. All right. So just quickly, Tim Dillon tells Rogan that the Epstein saga has pulled back the curtain on a long history of the ruling elites protecting their own depravity. It is a long history. So have a listen.
People have died to cover this stuff up, as Jean-Luc Burdett. There's definitely, and it's been exposed, I think, by the Epstein thing. There's an entire ecosystem of depravity amongst the ruling elites that people go to great lengths to cover up. This is obvious. So,
and always has.
And always has forever and ever and ever. And it would be absolutely plausible to me that people have died to cover this stuff up, as Jean-Luc Burdett, Jeffrey Epstein, many others.
Yeah.
Maybe Virginia Giuffre, I don't know. But like, there's tons of questionable deaths linked to the Epstein thing. And by the way, linked to things like the Franklin scandal that happened many years ago. All of the Gary Caradori was an investigator who supposedly had proof politicians abusing children. Plane goes down with his kid.
Whitewater.
Yeah. Suspicious deaths.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just once again highlighted this is nothing new. This has been happening for a very long time. And also, people get smoked for this sort of stuff all the time. It happens.
Yeah, well, I mean, I remember there used to be pretty common. You'd see the video of the CIA's heart attack gun. They'd shoot you with a gun that had a dissolvable needle. It would penetrate the skin. You'd have a heart attack after a little bit, and away you go. Many people used to speculate that such a thing happened to Andrew Breitbart. You know, that he had a couple of cups of wine, his face got flushed up, he walked outside, and then he was dead. And it's like, look, was Breitbart killed by the government? I don't know. I doubt it. But I'm just pointing out that people have known that this is going on for a long, long, long time. And the truth is most people are willing to turn kind of a blind eye to these types of things because they feel like their national security is more important. And if we got to blackmail some people using underage prostitutes, and that's what we got to do. There are actually people who postulate that that's necessary and would rather see the status quo continue than actually confront it. But right now, think about what it is that you're asking. You're asking that the elites of the world tell on themselves, expose themselves, and then allow themselves to get arrested for their crimes. Yeah, right. That's the most naive, imbecilic shit that I've ever heard in my life. They're not going to do it, ever. It's not going to happen. And this form of depravity is part of the human condition when it comes to many of these elites. So, I mean, that's something that we're going to have to confront at some point.
Yeah, man. I mean, it was interesting. I remember when you and I were in Santa Barbara and we were having pizza and you were telling me about all of the Mossad executions, all of the things that the Mossad has done over the years in terms of having people killed. And it's like, not only do they do it, they're pretty good at it too.
Remember I told you about Saddam's super cannon? And explained how Americans were killed by Israeli intelligence officials. This has happened many, many times. And I mean, I don't know how many times. Much of it has been greenlit and assisted by our own Central Intelligence Agency. And these are all declassified documents that anybody can go read themselves. But most people don't want to because you know what? They don't really want to know how the world works. Most people don't really want to know how the world works because it's really uncomfortable. They'd rather just say, hey, it's all a conspiracy with tinfoil hats, and that's that.